Hello and welcome to the February 1st edition of the TetraCast, 2014 edition of the TetraCast. My name is Zack Reese. I'm your host. Join us today. It's a little bit of a short crowd today. Is David Kreinberg and Adam Vitale.
Hey, where's Simon anyway?
Simon.
He's at parties everywhere.
He doesn't mean to offend anyone, but he's going to be gone for this episode, so he's not making an appearance today. Apparently we've heard he's a party animal at work.
Being offensive.
No, he's a very offensive person.
Yeah,
Sorry to say he won't be making it this time, but filling the gap, we'll be talking about a lot of stuff on this episode. Of course, we just recently announced on the site our picks for the 2000. I can't talk. David, take over.
Me? All right.
Yes.
We just announced our picks for the. Hold on. What are we doing?
That's great.
I'm not a good host. We just announced the picks for the 2014-2013 RPG of the year stuff.
No, you really screwed it up. Yes, 2013 Game of the Year, RPGs of the Year by category. And so we're going to talk about that, of course, because we spent a lot of time on that one, so we're pretty proud about what we chose. So we'll definitely be discussing that. Also, we'll kind of talk about a little of the games that we personally enjoyed this past year. Surprisingly, there was a ton of RPGs that came out this past year. I mean, obviously, you can only choose so many for the awards, but I'm sure you guys have your own eclectic tastes for what you enjoyed a lot this year. I mean, Paul, I'm sure you guys, I've been hearing a lot what you guys have been playing. It's a lot of old stuff, too, so we'll kind of delve into that a little bit, too. But also, 2014 is going to be a gigantic year for RPGs, just based on this list that we've been building and posting news about. I mean, there's been announcements this past week, so it's going to be huge, and so we're going to talk about that, of course. But first things first, of course, let's kind of look back a little bit and talk about what we decided on for the 2013 RPGs of the year. So let's take a look at this list that we have up. And if you guys haven't seen it yet, definitely check it out. It's, like I said, we put some good work into it, so we want to let you guys know that we did think a lot about how we wanted to choose between these categories.
It took quite a bit of deliberation to come to our decision.
Oh,
yeah. A lot of choking, a lot of anger.
Yeah. Fisticuffs, almost.
A lot of fighting, a lot of strife,
name calling, everything.
Yep. A lot of finger wagging, a lot of. That's the thing. Is obviously, I mean, it's the thing with any RPG is that everyone here has different tastes, and so trying to focus in on all these different genres and trying to figure out which is the best, especially because handhelds had a big year,
It is.
I mean, everyone here has a handheld system, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I have a Vita, but like David, what handhelds do you own?
I have a 3DS. I recently got a Vita, I think late December. I don't remember, something like that.
Oh really? Oh okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, I have both handheld systems, and when I was going through my, I ranked the top 10 games that I played this year, not just RPGs, but the top 5 of them happen to be handheld games, and it's just there's a lot of cool games on there, and a lot of our RPG sites lists are on handhelds.
Exactly. It seems to really be coming on its own. I mean, you're talking about two systems where a couple years ago everyone was fire and brimstone about it. They were talking down about these systems, and I'm sure we were among those people kind of questioning about that too. But,
I was never among those people. I was always a DS guy. Back in 2005, I was a DS guy.
That's the thing is that but 2005. I'm trying to remember where the DS was at.
It was
that point.
Shit. It had something.
That's it had.
That was before the DS kind of
mini games
took off. Yeah.
Once it took off though, it got a lot of games.
Oh my God! It's got it doesn't have probably the biggest liberry.
Yes.
Maybe
I don't know.
It's up there for sure because you go to a game store and you see there were 2 walls dedicated to the DS at one point. I remember because they had it was a corner, but man, that it was halfway down the wall there was DS
system games. Ever. Actually, no. PS2 still has it beat by a million or so.
No, I think it actually they just announced like yesterday
with the Nintendo financials. Yeah.
Yeah, they announced that it actually passed PlayStation 2.
Oh shit! DS is the biggest ever. Then neat.
Because it still costs the PlayStation 2 costs it's cost like $100 for a while, but isn't like the DS still in production right now?
I thought they halted production on the DS. I'm not sure though. They halted production on the PS2. Like
that's right. It was like
I think.
Yeah, just like last year, I think it stopped production.
I don't know.
Well, but China opened up to game systems again, so you never know. They got to count those two. You got obviously like 1 billion people in China, so you gotta kind of balance that out for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. It might be hard to track if we get into the developing nations.
Yeah, well, it's obvious that those systems did really well. Yeah. But yeah, it's really, you got to wait a couple years with any system. I'm speaking obvious here, but it's pretty amazing how these systems have kind of launched themselves off. So yeah, it's great. Got a lot of games this year, and so let's kind of focus in then on the games we chose. So coming off the top of the list here, we with the new site, we've been kind of expanding our definition of the RPG. I mean, as everyone has been lately, trying to figure out what games we can cover that, even if it's light,
should we talk about that? Because I mean, we didn't have a podcast in January, so
I think it's kind of a never-ending conversation. What is an RPG and what's not an RPG, and what elements are needed to make it an RPG? So it's definitely a conversation that I don't think will be ending anytime soon.
Yeah. I will always make the argument that Zelda is indeed an RPG, even if a lot of people don't like to put that in the same field. It's like it's got quests. You got a town you can visit. You talk with NPCs. You roam around in battle. It's like you get new equipment. You have skills and all kinds of stuff. It's like, what part of that does not fit an RPG? People are so traditional about it.
I think the argument there would be that there are no like stats or things like that, other than like hearts that you get. That's about it. But
I mean,
but you do upgrade like your weapons and armor. You can buy and sell items and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So it's like but obviously, there's a lot of entries in Zelda. It's like Zelda 2, obviously, it was complete RPG right there. But then you look at some of the more recent ones, it's
you could say like it's a light RPG, something like that, because it has very light RPG elements.
Yep, and in our RPG Site Awards, we called it a tangential RPG.
Whatever that is.
Well,
fancy word.
It kind of tiptoes the line of what is an RPG, and so I guess that's where we get the term tangential from. And there were a couple of games that were kind of, I guess, maybe not in the conversation because this was one of the awards that was, I think, decided relatively quickly. But I know there's Rogue Legacy. I know there was since the site covers visual novels and things like that. I know Ace Attorney was at least thrown around, but we pretty quickly, I think, decided that Zelda: Link Between Worlds was our best tangential RPG.
Exactly. I mean, and you can also throw games like Sleeping Dogs and Shenmue and Yakuza and stuff, games like that where it's like it's not quite there, but it's got some of that stuff that would make RPG fans happy. So that definitely, we pretty much decided quickly, as you said, that Zelda would be the winner for that award. And as I put Rogue Legacy on there, I personally really enjoyed Rogue Legacy, and it did have some of those elements, like you have all these different randomly generated character classes that you kind of jump into, and then you have dungeons that you can explore and bosses to fight and stuff like that. So I felt it kind of fit that too, but definitely Zelda for sure. And David, you played Zelda too, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, as you said, you told us before, I should say. So what were your feelings about Zelda personally?
I liked it a lot. I liked the rental system. I liked. I thought the dungeons never overstayed their welcome. They were brief, but not like super short. I like the idea of not having to like search around the dungeon for a weapon. You have more focus in them. Mm-hmm. I love the shifting into walls mechanic. That was awesome.
That was surprisingly clever how they used it. When that mechanic was first revealed, you're just kind of like, or at least I was like, what? Really? That seems, silly, or what can I do with this? Anyways, I wasn't,
I thought they had a vision even back then. So
I was just a little bit confused what they were going to do with it, and what could be done with it. But then they had some really neat puzzles, both in the dungeons and on the overworld, how you can explore things with that wall mechanic, kind of getting to how do you get to this ledge way over here, like you just go on the wall, and other puzzles like that. So that was surprisingly clever how they used it.
Yeah, they're fun.
I was the one who wrote the review for the game on RPG Site, and I gave it an 8, which is a good score. So I don't think anyone, bought about the score or anything, but I really did like the game. And to me, the thing that the game did best, in my opinion, was the overworld, especially when you're coming off of Twilight Princess or Skyward Sword, which are 3D games, so they're a little different. Where one had a very kind of bare and not much to do overworld, and one was very, that being Twilight Princess, and then Skyward Sword, which was kind of very streamlined and really wasn't even an overworld. The areas were kind of segmented.
I never played that. Yeah.
But anyways, A Link Between Worlds, after a couple of introductory, moments in the game, you pretty much are just given free reign. Okay, you have to save the sages, kind of like Link to the Past, and go. Yeah. That's all they say. And so you basically have the whole overworld to explore, and because you can get any item you want basically relatively early on, there really isn't a place you're supposed to go first and a place you're supposed to go second or anything like that.
That's what I've heard, is that you kind of, as soon as you start, you can kind of go wherever. Although, Link to the Past kind of had that, of course, but at some point, you were kind of like, you need to go here to get the Master Sword, then you got to go to the Dark World and all this stuff. So it was a little more direct at that point. But I hear this one is kind of more free range. Is that it?
It's probably.
And that was the best part about the game, the best aspect of it. And I think a lot of people really appreciated that I guess shift in structure, especially coming off of more recent Zelda games, where I know people did there has been some criticism about the hand holding and the relatively streamlined nature of it.
Zelda's always been a very easy game. Yeah. So do you notice any kind of difficulty in the game itself in Link Between Worlds?
I think Link Between Worlds was also fairly simple in terms of its difficulty. It's once you get, a couple of hearts from beating some of the early kind of cake dungeons, I think it's pretty difficult to find yourself struggling in any case. Now, the game does have a higher difficulty mode called Hero Mode. It's locked to a second playthrough, which is a little disappointing that you kind of have to beat the game first before you can get to it.
Especially if you played the first one,
And especially games like Wind Waker, which came out this year as well, kind of unlocked that from the beginning, a similar mode. I would say that it's still an easy game. So if you're looking for a more difficult Zelda game, this might not have that for you. But
that's not really. It's as much people want the difficulty. That's not really what the Zelda series has been about. It's more like it's the experience of gently easing into this expansive world, and in the music too. I've heard there's a lot of remixed Link to the Past music in that soundtrack.
Oh yes, if you're a fan of A Link to the Past, there's basically every song has been remixed, and most of them for the better. I think a lot of the songs were very, very well done, remixed in this game.
All right, so and like we mentioned, that one for best, I can't pronounce it. Is it tangential? Is that how it's pronounced? I don't know why we chose that word.
Tangential.
But tangential. Oh, yes. Why is there an I in there? I don't know. They just make it complicated, English. All right, so, and then with that, kind of go down the list a little bit because, there was that big one right there. But the game that won a couple of the awards here, Ni no Kuni, won Best Big Screen and Best Writing. And so, which I think was very well deserved. Unfortunately, it did not win Game of the Year, but it's my runner-up. But that's, speaking personally about it, it's I'm a huge anime fan, so growing up watching Studio Ghibli films, ever since I was a kid with the family and stuff like that, watching Princess Mononoke and Spirited Away and all these great classic anime movies, it was great to see something like that happen where you have this amazing, legendary company, this studio, teaming up with one of the biggest RPG companies in Japan to create this game. And David, you wrote the review for the game, of course, and we'll be pushing that to the site very soon to promote that. But you did the blurb about the writing.
Yes, I did.
So did you really get that Studio Ghibli? Did you watch the movies as much as I did?
I actually have not seen that many Studio Ghibli films. Yeah,
really?
I've seen Princess Mononoke. I wasn't paying attention to it at all because I was
Why not?
I was an incredibly ADHD kid, so
okay.
I saw what the hell did I see?
Pompoko?
I did not. There's one. You know what I saw that I liked that a lot of people.
Don't tell me it's. What is it?
A lot of people don't even associate this with Studio Ghibli because it's not Miyazaki. I'll give you. Can you guess it?
Grave of the Fireflies?
Yeah,
Really?
Grave of the Fireflies.
Why is it? I could only see that movie once. I could never see that movie again.
I keep meaning to have a Studio Ghibli marathon, but I keep getting sidetracked. But anyway, I did get the feeling of Studio Ghibli based on the trailers I've seen of them. So
yeah,
it's a very whimsical world. It's it's very charming where the writing isn't supposed to be offensive at all. It's just it's very simple but not simplistic plots, if that makes sense. There's some subtle depth to them. There's some good stuff going on that isn't meant to really be. It's meant to be accessible to a wide array of audiences, wide range.
Yeah, and what they always do very well, in my opinion, is that they develop very likable characters. Characters that you actually care about, people that you can relate to. They're always kind of grounded in reality. Like all their movies have been like that. It's like you got My Neighbor Totoro, you got The Two Kids, you got I'm thinking all the other movies that I can think of.
I haven't played Ni no Kuni, although I do plan to get to it, and nor have I seen a Studio Ghibli movie. We'll get back to that.
What?
Right. I don't watch a lot of movies. And,
you'll see that.
Anyways, I eventually. But anyways, just from what I've seen in Ni no Kuni, just from how it was marketed, a lot of RPGs and I think games in general, they try to be cool and they try to be edgy, and then sometimes it just doesn't. It comes off kind of laughable when they try to do that. Or Ni no Kuni doesn't try to be edgy or anything like that. It it definitely has that tonality of a more charming, and you can just tell that by the music and the animation. Even though I haven't played a second of the game, I kind of have a feeling.
What have you seen of it?
Well, just from the trailers and the the little anime scenes, a couple of them that they've shown. Just it's colorful, it's bright. It's not dark, and the music is kind of cheery. So it just seems that it's got that lighthearted feel to it, which I think most games don't even attempt that because they want to be cool and to varying effects.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or on the subject of music, Joe Hisashi has really made something great there.
Yeah, he did an amazing job. It's fantastic that they were able to get the guy who's basically doing a lot of Studio Ghibli's music over the years. Being able to bring him in and create this amazing soundtrack that kind of brings the whole experience home.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a pretty great time. And the best part I think about Ni no Kuni for me anyway was that it felt like I was. It sounds kind of lame, but it sounds like I was like a kid again. It felt like I was on a summer break, as a kid, and playing this game, kind of sitting down, just completely getting myself absorbed into this experience. At no point did I want to stop playing that game. I sucked up so much time into this. I'm not a completionist by any means. Usually it's that I start a game, play it through the main story pretty much, and I'm about done. It's not because I don't like the game. It's more that it's either I don't have enough time to kind of get myself in that experience, or that the side stuff is kind of like, well, whatever, I don't really care about this weird random side quest. But here I actually went out of my way to want to do all these quests because you can see all these amazing different parts of the world. You could the great thing is about the fact that this is kind of like a monster catching game like Pokemon, but this is a lot more about taking these monsters. Obviously, you evolve them and stuff like that, but like I wanted to find all these different monsters, get them into my group, train them, and there was a lot of motivation to play this game. And the fact that you have everything wrapped up into this amazing Studio Ghibli experience with Level 5's amazing ability to take this cell shading technology that not many people use that much nowadays. I mean, obviously they used it like with Wind Waker and such, but nowadays you don't see it too much. But with this, they came up with one of the most amazing looking games. Like playing this on a big screen, it just blows your mind how beautiful everything looks. Exactly, and that's why I got completely caught up in the experience. It's not going to win the award for like the most like theatrical, like it's like a Shakespeare play or something like that. It's not going to have like the most complex writing and stuff like that people want from some RPG. It's not really text heavy. There's even like the only thing I can knock against the game is that it doesn't have like a ton of voice acting in it. But that's kind of brings me back to
I think there was a problem
before,
with the localization more than anything else.
That's part of it for sure.
Because I think a lot of scenes that were cut out in terms of being voiced in the North American version were voiced in the Japanese version.
Yeah, it's obviously contracts, passing hands, stuff like that. But at the same time, it's that because I was so caught up in kind of reliving the way I used to be. Like I played a ton of games in like middle school and high school, a ton of RPGs, stuff like that. And like all those, there was no voice acting. I love Final Fantasy IX. There's not a moment of voice acting in that game, but it's that you cared a lot about these characters, like I said, and that the writing for what it was very good. I loved the White Witch story. That happened at the end of the game.
That was
pretty
great.
much, but it definitely was it hooked me in, and that's what I could say the best thing about that game. That's why I'm glad we at least gave them those awards.
I know there are murmurs about, I don't know how founded they are, of a potential sequel.
They said a sequel. They said it could be coming to the Vita.
I mean, it sold pretty well, so I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the latest in North American numbers, it's several 100,000, which is pretty good for a big screen RPG these days.
It's greatest hits, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and it's a lot of people were talking about it on Twitter, and on any social media beginning of the year. A lot of people were talking about that game, and it's very encouraging to see that in a good light.
Oh yeah.
It's people. I never saw any like really people bad mouthing this game. I mean, people sure had their qualms about the
bad mouthing it.
It's the people that are bad mouthing it. It's more that they're not happy about how traditional it can be sometimes, and how it can be kind of grindy and stuff like that.
Most of the criticisms I've seen, again, I haven't played the game, are battle system related. I haven't seen people criticize, the characters or the tone or anything of that, which is what we're talking about.
See, I actually have seen people criticize the story, and this is actually a criticism I have. There's a good part of it where it's like it feels like a lot of empty space where just not a lot is happening.
Like filler?
Yeah, like filler. I mean, again, the way it starts off great, it ends great, but I mean, I do think there's a
like with any RPG, the middle parts can
more
be
so here. Like there's a pretty decent chunk in the middle where there's not really much going on, and there's a lot of like fetch quests and stuff like that. But no, the criticism I see a lot is the pathfinding in battle, which is like a lot of people say that this is exactly what they expect out of level 5, because apparently level 5 isn't really that good at combat, which I disagree with. But
I wouldn't
not their strong
necessarily go there. Rogue Legacy was all right with the combat,
and also the AI, which I agree with. The AI is not very good. I mean, even with
there's some cheap battles in there though. Some pretty cheap battles, like that genie. That was a pain in the ass. I remember.
Yeah.
But it's like I said, it's found it. You can completely, and that's I can completely understand where someone's coming from when it comes to something like that. It's like I said, it's a very traditional game, and that's kind of what they set out to do. And yes, the middle parts are kind of meddling. It's definitely got a lot of filler, but that's the same with some of the
that's the
like
same.
Persona 4's got a lot of that stuff. So that's why the murmur about a sequel, gives them another chance to try that and see what they can come up with. So I hope that does come.
Maybe they'll get a following. Maybe someday we'll have a whole awesome series that are like million sellers.
Well, I think one thing that Ni no Kuni has is a more widespread appeal, which it definitely helps it. In terms of the business end of it,
that helps.
It makes some sense to make a sequel to it.
That's the thing you can talk about with Ghibli, of course, is that they know how to appeal to a wide audience, whether you're an adult or you're a kid. Kind of like the best like Disney movies or something like that, or Pixar movies. It's like they don't try to pretend that their audience is all a bunch of kids. It's that they have some slightly mature content over here. Like Ni no Kuni had some of that stuff too. Obviously, the way the story begins, it's kind of it catches you like, wow, really? And so that's the kind of thing that you appreciate from that type of content.
Big woman, mountain woman or something.
What?
The whole section where there's like that mountain woman and she's like giving birth, but it's really weird. The fairies.
Oh, yes. I was like, oh, yes, they went up into her body. Like, yes, I was trying to remember what you were talking. I was like, what do you even? I'm trying to imagine like just a normal size lady.
That whole section was really weird.
Yeah, that was very creepy, but that's so. Let's keep moving on.
I feel we should say that this is for best writing and for best big screen RPG. I think this was a pretty quick decision that we made. I think the only competition it had was Tales of Exilia.
Yeah.
Which a couple of us played. I think a lot of us liked that game in some regards, but had some qualms about it. So Ni no Kuni kind of edged it out. I don't think there really was much else in terms of big screen RPGs in 2013. Was there?
Yeah, I've personally not played Tales of Exilia. It's right there on my counter that I'm going to be playing it pretty soon, probably next month. But I've seen enough of that. I've seen a pretty good chunk of that game. My brother played it a lot, so I watched him play it, stuff like that. So it definitely looks really good. It's like none of these choices that we made means like this is much better than the other game. It's that for what, like for example, Ni no Kuni accomplished with its way to seamlessly blend in Studio Ghibli with a game. I think that, for me, that kind of pushed it over the top.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Tales of Exilia looks amazing, though.
I liked it. I didn't love it. I liked it.
Yeah, so that's, and obviously, Tales of Exilia 2 coming out this year.
That's supposed to be really good.
Especially in the writing and story. Apparently, it's considered to be one of the best or the best for Tales games. So
I heard the combat as well. Combat looks kind of like closer to a straight action game like Devil May Cry or something.
It looks tense, like intense. Like combo based system kind of thing. It looks nuts. I'm looking forward to that one, and that's that's going to be obviously up there when we look at the end of the year, hopefully. But and then kind of keep it going down here because obviously we had a game that dominated a lot of this, so I'm going to keep going. For the best soundtrack, Ys Memories of Salsetta wins that one. So it's, once again, this was kind of a heated talk between.
This might have been the most heated.
Yeah, there was a lot of bad feelings all around.
Zach and Liz were heavy supporters of the Ys soundtrack here, and I liked it a lot as well. But then my pick personally, as well as Simon's, was for Shin Megami Tensei 4, which ended up being the runner-up. So it took us a while to come to a decision of which one should be our winner. And the soundtracks are definitely very different. So you can't really go wrong with either, I think. But Ys definitely has the more upbeat, higher tempos, kind of the music that you're used to with Ys soundtracks. Lots of electric guitar, a lot of violin as well, really up-paced tracks. So especially what's the word I'm looking at? It corresponds well with the gameplay of the series, pretty well.
It's what you come to expect from a Falcom soundtrack. It's that they do a pretty good job of bringing a lot of music, a lot of tracks into a game. Where obviously with some RPGs, it's that you got that one dungeon music, that one field music, that one town music that kind of you might hear like a few times throughout the game. With the Falcom soundtracks, I mean, obviously with Megami Tensei games too, you get a pretty good at least quantized number of tracks in the game that, from one place to the next, you hear a brand new tune. And that's why it came down the way it did.
One thing I think Ys does well is, since battles are done on the map and there isn't like a separate arena for your battles, is when you're exploring an area, you can hear a track basically in long from beginning to the end, and of course it'll repeat. Unlike a lot of RPGs where you're in an area and you'll hear part of the area track and then the screen shatters or whatever, and you go into the battle, and then you hear the start of the battle track, and you hear that again and again, and so it kind of each track is kind of interrupted. Where Ys, you don't hear that; it's seamless because the battles are seamless. So I think that definitely helps.
And the tracks are long too. That's what helps it too.
One of my favorite track is Ancient Land. I think that's a popular favorite that plays in the mountain areas later in the game. Has a heavy violin part nearing the end of the track, which is my favorite part of it. But yeah, a lot of these tracks they're very melodic, and they kind of get your blood pumping as you fight. At least some of them do. But there are a couple of softer tracks as well during the cutscenes or during the opening.
They definitely.
So it's not always a bunch of these noisy melodic tracks. There's a lot of these softer tracks as well that can balance it a bit, which definitely helps the overall package.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the feeling that I got playing a lot too. I mean, it's through and through. It's an action RPG, and so it's got a lot of music in it. It's got a lot of variety to it as well that I appreciate. Like you said, they kind of jump off from being soft and even some of the more dramatic moments, especially towards the later parts of the game, that they can bring it down a little bit and focus in on the scene. So Ys, of course, focus more on as you said, it's more about the intensity, it's about the mood and stuff like that. For Shin Megami Tensei 4, well, as you can see about a lot of Megami Tensei games, it's more not so much. I kind of pull back. It's not so much the action going on. It's trying to set the mood.
Yeah, Shin Megami Tensei was my favorite soundtrack. Zach didn't like it very much, but
for me. I heard. Yeah.
I admit that it's. I actually like there are the battle tracks, and then there's kind of like all the other tracks in the different parts of the city and whatnot, and they're more rhythmic in nature, kind of like a regular kind of beat, kind of a regular pace without much of a melody to them.
That's the thing. I get it. And for me, it's that when I come to soundtracks, it's music that I really want to hear outside of the game. I don't always need just the plain old like this. It only works within context. When I listen to both the Ys soundtrack and the Shin Megami Tensei soundtrack through, it's not neither of them are bad soundtracks. It's just for me, it's that when I listened to the Shin Megami Tensei soundtrack, there was a good number of them that seemed kind of similar to each other. It was a lot of like low beat, as you said, rhythmic kind of, but it felt like they were kind of samey for me. But that's not like I haven't played Shin Megami Tensei 4. I'm only going off the soundtrack, of course, but that's just how I felt when I listened to it. But it's not bad. It's certainly a lot better than a lot of other crap that came out this year that was a lot worse with the music and stuff like that. But that's how I felt.
Shin Megami Tensei is a lot of their battle music. While some of them I liked, the series is kind of known for kind of like these chaotic, noisy battle musics where they're it is kind of almost like garbage sound for a bit, and it's almost intentional.
Is that right?
Where they're kind of
low key.
Well, just kind of a lot of a mismatch of sounds in the soundtracks, and that's kind of what
the experiments.
That's kind of what Shin Megami Tensei is. They do that a lot, but.
And that's going from like Shin Megami Tensei to like say Persona. Persona is kind of like Ys. It's got more upbeat a little bit. It's got more like
poppy.
Kind of poppy. Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
It's like we both thought the same thing. And so, that's why obviously and that's where it kind of came down to. It's that they're very different kinds of music, and so it's really hard. Just like all these other picks, it's really hard to kind of come to a consensus about it because they're so different from each other. Especially because you got people who play through the game, enjoy the music and stuff like that, but like you said, it's very different games,
And music is, of course, one of the most subjective, things out there. Everyone has a different thing that they tick to, so.
Exactly, and music can deliver an experience where words cannot. So it's kind of hard to.
It's hard to talk about, really.
Exactly, it definitely is. But in this case, I think that there was kind of a move to ease, but that's that I don't think anyone can say bad about either of these soundtracks that much. It's they did their job, and that's what I think that we can kind of go away with it. Kind of be lame about it, but let's move on to biggest surprise, of course, which is a very big surprise considering just a couple of years ago it was our pick for the most disappointing game, Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn. Now, this is coming off someone who kind of followed it along when 14 first launched back in 2010. So the way I understood it was that there was always this core group that was very into Final Fantasy XIV, even when it crashed and burned the way it did. And so that audience was still around when A Realm Reborn came back, but it was just so, the game itself, like the story was fine, the game was broken, so incredibly broken, and so to see them turn around in 18 months and create this amazing experience that's almost completely brand new, like a lot of it is like a lot of it is like a lot of stuff in the environment where it used to be a lot of like copy paste kind of thing, which is a lot of our MMOs do that. It wasn't under as much scrutiny as 14 got just because of how much controversy it caused at the time anyway. People were upset about 13 and stuff like that, so they were trying to find ways to attack. But not for good reason either, though, because Final Fantasy XIV had a lot of problems with it, a lot of technical issues, a lot of glitches. The servers were a drag, just kind of like they are right now. But there was all these problems going on, and then here comes Yoshida. Here comes Naoki Yoshida. He comes around and takes over producer and completely just turns everything around with the team, and it was probably the most amazing moments seeing like a team like that who was very transparent, very upfront about the problems that faced them. They were being very honest about it, talking about what problems they had before, talking about how the game was rushed out the door, and without them ever kind of thinking about the consequences.
I think this definitely shows. I think that was the great way to put it. Like how honest they were with the whole thing. Like they basically admitted, like, yeah, we didn't do very good with this first attempt here, so we're going to make it right. And they put a lot of effort into redoing it with this re-release. And it seems like now I haven't played it. MMOs. I might try out the PlayStation 4 version when it comes out.
It's got to be out for free and extra.
Yeah. April being the full release or whatever. But I've seen a lot, of the same storylines. That this is a much improved game.
It definitely is. It's
So you played a little bit of it.
Yeah. I basically played. To be honest, I haven't played as much as like Aaron has. Aaron still plays so much to this day. It blows my mind every time I see the updates. But for me, I played all the way up to like level 30, and I put a lot of time into it. It's not. I still got a good chunk of that experience, and I can definitely see how amazing that it was. Seeing all those producer letters and stuff like that, seeing the patch notes, even like this past week, all the great new updates they've been added in. It's this gigantic game now, and it's amazing, like all the stuff they have planned for it, and they don't want to hesitate at all. They keep coming up with more things to add to the game to improve the experience. And
of course, they're bringing out the console versions to basically. They spent a lot of effort with this game, and they're trying to, show everybody, hey, this is a great game. It's not just an MMO. Everyone says that you can play this single player. And
it's got an amazing single player story.
Even if you don't like playing with other people online, that you can play it like a single player game if you want, and to no disadvantage or little disadvantage maybe, and that it's a great game and not just a great MMO.
Yeah, and Coming from me, where I played a lot of Final Fantasy XI, I put so many years into that game. Going from that to Final Fantasy XIV, it is a million times more approachable. Before with 11, I stopped in like 2008, so I'm not too familiar with how 11 is nowadays. I mean, they've been, like recently 11 added a feature where you can actually get NPCs to join you to fight for you, so that game's come a long way with the way they treat people who want to just fight alone. At least when it comes to like real life people, obviously. But in 14, it's that, yes, it's got this amazing, well-developed story that the characters are all very well done. Even characters that you wished would appear in other properties as well. So they did a great job there. And then all the environments are very well put together. And so, yeah, absolutely. It's an amazing turnaround. And, for people that didn't give 14 a chance, yeah, as you said, they're going to do it's coming to the PlayStation 4, so they're doing their beta in February, late February, where it's the PlayStation 4. You don't need to buy the game; you can just jump in, download it, play it yourself, and then it's coming out in April. So I don't have the exact dates or anything like that, but it's coming out in April, and people are kind of giving it the cold shoulder because it's got a subscription, but man. From what I've heard about that game, it delivers, because you kind of think like, what if this game was free to play? What kind of experience would it be? It's like, I think that without those subscription fees that the company's been getting, that the team's been getting, I don't think they could probably do half of what they've been able to. It's like if they didn't have that stuff, like I'm sure Final Fantasy XIV and When We're Born, we would not be talking well about it. I think at this point, not because free to play can't work. It's that for all the stuff they had to do with that game to make it decent, it's with the promise that they'll have that money there to pay for it, and without the demand of having to develop like items on a weekly basis for weekly basis for an item store or something. It's like I like that they're focusing in on the experience rather than like the surrounding stuff.
Yeah, and I guess with all the kind of the mixed reactions that the Lightning Returns or that trilogy is getting, and with Lightning Returns coming out next year as well, I think Final Fantasy XIV: The Realm Reborn is, in a general sense, a big success story for Square Enix as of late.
They're pointing to it.
Yeah, so it's
funny how they're touting it as this amazing story, and they have so many subscribers and stuff like that. It's like this is this amazing thing, and it's like you hope that they're putting all that success, all that money that they're earning from this towards the games that you want to get from them, not the games that you don't give a crap about. Yeah. Or like these mobile, like these crappy games you don't want. So it's like you hope that they put this money. It's like, okay, you're doing an amazing job with The Moment Born. Now can you give us like a new Star Ocean, a new Valkyrie profile, a new Parasite Eve or something like that?
That'd be nice.
Yeah, right? A new Final Fantasy Tactics, please?
A new Chrono game?
A new Chrono game, yes, please. That's the thing. It's like people like try to talk down about these things. Like, well, they say about how they have these money problems, but I think it's not that you want to give them money to do this. Like, hey,
well, I think most people would agree that Square is probably in a down note right now. There's a lot of potential that they have that's kind of sitting there. Whether it's
they got the director of Final Fantasy 9 and 12 just sitting off to the sides. You don't know what he's doing right now, so it's like hopefully he's making the next game you want to play.
But anyways, in a couple of months, I'm sure we'll have a podcast talking about Lightning Returns and talking about this whole thing later. So I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure we'll be talking about this more.
Yeah, I'll probably do a special one on that one. So there's that. But then obviously look forward to it. Look forward to our reactions. Although we do have a review of Lightning Returns up on the site that you can check out for our impressions on that title. But, obviously that's just one person's view, and so we'll hopefully get to what you guys thought too. And so finally, of course, we have the game that dominated a lot of the categories here. Well, I should say just two, but it's the two big ones here. We have Fire Emblem Awakening Best Handheld, and of course our Best Overall RPG. And so, David, of course, you said you played a ton of Fire Emblem.
Oh, yeah.
What drew you the most to that game, of course?
Well, I've been a Fire Emblem fan since the first one in America, which was, I think, 7.
Yes.
I played fan translations of earlier ones, and like I played all the official ones, and I've been a huge fan of the series. I've been a huge fan of like the way permadeath is present and how OCD that makes me. And like this is the most streamlined Fire Emblem experience there is, and like it's got so much, like a lot of great stuff for old and new fans, like the new like the way you can just go to skirmishes. Now I'm using Valkyria Chronicles terminology.
Oh, that's what I like to hear.
Yeah. I mean, I know you could do that in Fire Emblem 8, I think, but yeah, there's a lot of cool new features, and I know that the development team said that the future of the series could be in jeopardy if they don't like sell enough for that, so they worked their asses off, and they made it like the best they could make it, as if it would be their last. So they packed in a ton of content, and then there's like the whole marriage thing, which adds a new layer of gameplay. There's teaming up, which adds a new layer of gameplay. Like there's just so many combinations, and the series always was pretty deep, because I mean that's how SRPGs are. But the teaming up thing makes it quite a bit deeper. And see, after I beat hard mode, which I played. That was the first mode I played. Then I went into lunatic mode, which anyone that's familiar with Fire Emblem know that you shouldn't do that if you're a sane person. So I went into that, and it was just like,
lunatic
oh my
requires
God,
almost perfect strategy and, of course, a lot of luck.
Oh
wow, yeah, that'd be headache.
No, like
sure.
the first 3 chapters in lunatic mode, you have to rely on your big your pre-promoted guy, who I think is Frederick. I can't remember.
Yep.
Yeah, and
that's how lunatic modes or hard modes in the other games are too. Early on, you kind of have to
you have to
baby your other units. Anyway,
this was the first time I actually played lunatic mode, because I was just having so much fun with the game in general. So I wanted to play it again. And yeah, there's just like I loved all the combinations with the marriages. I loved all the combinations in battle. I mean, the story's kind of basic, but that's Fire Emblem.
Yeah.
The music is good, and you know what? The 3D effect is actually very good if you play.
Really?
On. There's this one stage that's like where there's a lot of rain. I thought the 3D effect on that was fantastic. It's just like
Nintendo. They do some pretty cool things with the 3D. It may not be my preference to have it on all the time, but I tried it out with Fire Emblem and with Zelda, and it works pretty well.
Yeah. No, Idea Factory.
Now they've always been putting out those great Fire Emblem games. When they're not putting out like Agro
Intelligent Systems. That's who I meant. I thought IS, and that meant IF. I don't know.
That's close. It's
but
fine.
yeah, it's a great game. Like, and again, it's streamlined. And one major reason for that is you could turn off permadeath.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's a big deal for newcomers to the series, or if you just want to.
I think more games need options like that you can change.
Oh, yeah.
That will appeal to different people. Personally, I would never turn permadeath off.
Oh, yeah.
No, I would assume that
otherwise,
be kind of a big deal.
I mean, the way I see it, kind of speaking specifically now, is if you have permadeath off, you kind of can do these like cheap strategies, like I'm going to send out a person to kind of distract them for a couple of turns, and he'll probably die, but who cares? But you can't really do that with permadeath off, so it just kind of opens up. It opens up a couple of things.
You gotta be a lot more careful with your baiting strategies when you
pay attention to where enemies respawn and things like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Anyways, if I had to say a couple of things, now I know without a doubt that Fire Emblem is my favorite series. Now I've only played the localized games, all of them. and I played the fan translation of 6, which is the one with Roy that was never localized, to completion as well, and only parts of the earlier games. I never played those. But even still, Fire Emblem is definitely the series I enjoy most. And now I really, really like Fire Emblem Awakening, but it doesn't surpass my favorite Fire Emblem titles, which are 7, which is called just Fire Emblem in the U.S., and Path of Radiance for the GameCube.
Yeah,
and
I'm a fan too.
Yeah, the quickest way I can put it is that I prefer the titles that have a more chapter-by-chapter progression, and that's a little bit of a thing where a lot of the Fire Emblem games are different from other SRPGs, is that SRPGs, a lot of them have random battles of some sort where there are story levels, but then there are just other battles you can do as well. And
leveling yourself up.
Yeah, but earlier Fire Emblem games didn't have that. You basically did a level, then you go straight to the next, and what that led to is that there was a limited amount of enemies out there, there's a limited amount of EXP, a limited amount of money, and you kind of had to deal with what you got and manage your characters, your levels, and your items in that regard. Both Sacred Stones and Awakening added the map to it, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. Fire Emblem Awakening was personally my number 2 game for the year, so I really liked it, no doubt about it. But I think just the world map part of the Fire Emblem series, I don't prefer as much as the chapter-by-chapter basis that the other games had.
Understandable.
Yeah. But anyways, like Fire Emblem, the thing I really like about the series is it is an SRPG, but it's in some ways it's much more simple than an SRPG. You really don't have like equipment, and you really don't have like skills that you need to manage or things like that. Well, I mean, you have like a sword.
But I mean, when you take into account magic, there's a lot more depth. Because
really the only equipment you worry about is your weapon or your whatever magic spell you have.
So what you're saying is that there's not a whole lot of micromanagement in that game.
It's pretty simple compared to other SRPGs where you might have classes that you can change more regularly. You can do some class changing in Fire Emblem, but not as complex as other series. But I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying that's a good thing. I love other SRPGs, but one thing I like about Fire Emblem is that it kind of takes a little bit of the focus off of this micromanagement and more on the maps, on your character selection, and things like that, where you position your characters, you position your characters. A lot of SRPGs, you might be able to like build like a super character and have him mow down the map. Now I know you can do that in Awakening with characters like Donald, I think.
I'm gonna write that down. Sorry,
he's kind of like using Donald. He was just too broken. He was killing everything.
That's the best part of those games.
He was a lunatic. He was like killing everything.
Yeah. But that's
it's like Tactics. It's just Final Fantasy Tactics. You have characters like that.
Yep.
Yeah, Fire Emblem just kind of has a slightly different feel to it than a lot of SRPGs. And also there's a lot of luck to the series as well, both in kind of your hit chances and in terms of level ups and what stats you get. But I personally really like that. One thing about Fire Emblem, I know some people aren't into this, but I love to replay games a lot. And I probably have played Fire Emblem 7 and Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn probably more than 5 times each. And
wow, that's
one thing.
That's
Radiant Dawn is long though, isn't it?
Radiant Dawn is maybe not that one as much. Radiant Dawn is like 30-40 hours.
Longer.
Maybe depending. But anyways, I like picking different character selections. Like, last time I used this set of characters and they were kind of like my main unit. Now I'm going to use this totally different set and approach the maps differently. And I actually even kind of, made a game within a game with some of the earlier games. It doesn't work well with this game, with Fire Emblem Awakening. We're like, okay, now I'm going to use only magic people. So I'm just going to use all the magic people and no one else. Kind of put my own restriction on the game. And I know it sounds silly, but it can be really fun trying to figure out strategies of how to approach the maps if you limit yourself in certain ways.
Yeah, it's like dungeon crawlers.
Unfortunately,
it's the same kind of thing.
I think that kind of leads why Fire Emblem Awakening is just a little bit lower compared to the other games, because it's harder to do that with how the characters.
You can't live in your own fantasy world. Oh, it sucks.
Yeah. Anyways. But otherwise, it did add a lot of things like the pairing system, which wasn't my favorite system in the world, but where it kind of adds a lot of these elements to the game that you have to kind of keep on top of. Where earlier games in the series, you more had like individual characters kind of working by themselves. Now there were supports between them, but not nearly as involved as the pairing system was to how those basically added a bonus to each character as you used them, kind of as a single unit almost. But yeah, Fire Emblem Awakening, it doesn't really do anything poorly. It has a lot of great maps. It had great writing. There's support conversations, which it's only a kind of a minor part. It's not the main focus of the game, but it really fleshes out some of the characters and their personalities.
I love the support conversations.
Yeah,
I think that's what I've heard a lot of people. That's like one of their favorite things because it develops them so well. Like especially like the relationships, like actual relationships you have.
And sometimes I don't know if Fire Emblem Awakening does this as well as like Fire Emblem 7 did, but you don't actually figure out much about a character and their history in the story. You figure that out in the support conversations. So you really don't get to see. You don't really get to know the characters, and you read all these support conversations, and that's basically how the character building is done in these games, and that's why a lot of people really, and that's of course one big thing that Fire Emblem does differently than other SRPGs, where you have your story scenes, but that's about it.
That's
getting supports are a lot easier in Awakening than the rest of the series.
Right. In Fire Emblem 7, you had to stand right next to each other.
Oh yeah, for like 50 turns or something.
Which would never happen unless you were forcing it.
Oh yeah.
But Awakening is just basically if they go on a map at the same time. So
yeah.
That sounds way better than like some of the other things. Like especially like a Disgaea, where it's like you have to kind of like work together a lot. It's like you have to be next to each other. You have to do skills together and stuff like that to build your relationship. That sounds a little more beneficial to not have to deal with that as much. So I can see what that can be kind of cool.
Yeah, and I think the Fire Emblem games with the best stories are the Path of Radiance, Radiant Dawn, that duology. But Fire Emblem Awakening story, while it isn't like fantastic and it's not anything amazing, I think it's serviceable and does a good job and it keeps you interested enough without boring you or without insulting you, I think.
And that's why it's our RPG of the year. It's serviceable.
No, I was just talking about the narrative part of it. That's probably one of the weaker parts of the game if I had to pick one. But I guess what I'm just pointing out here is that the game did a lot of things very well, and even the things it didn't do quite as well, it did well enough. And the game's gotten a lot of praise, and I think rightfully so. I know I've compared it a lot to the earlier games just because it's my favorite series. I kind of have a hard time not talking about them, but I think it's safe to say we'll be seeing another title, and it'll probably share some similarities with this, with how successful it's been.
SMTX Fire Emblem.
Which,
there you go.
Nothing about.
Yeah, it's the funny thing. So one of the Shin Megami Tensei games, like early ones, a spinoff, was a strategy RPG, which was compared a lot to Fire Emblem. And so seeing something like this coming out, and kind of put a new perspective when I learned more about that game. I was like, oh really? So it started off with competition between the two. So working together, it's like, hey, this has worked before. Let's see. I'm looking forward to what a modern one looks like. So that'd be kind of cool.
I think it is kind of weird how they made it SMT and not Persona, especially considering like the first two SMT games were never officially released, but we'll be referencing them. So
they'll change it for the West. It'll be Fire Emblem versus Persona. I just wonder what that means. Like, are they teaming up? Or are they fighting against each other? Is it like some universe crossover? That'd be kind of weird. Just thinking about it. But yes, all we have is a picture. That's all we got.
Yep.
So we'll hopefully get to hear more about that in the future Nintendo Direct soon. But that's like that and X and all these games. It's like the RPGs that are actually supposed to come for them, for the consoles. It's like, don't know much. But that's something to look forward to. There was Fire Emblem Awakening, of course. Ni no Kuni, as I said before, is a runner-up. So we got that out of the way now. Not to dwell too much on it, because I want to move on to 2014 RPGs, which we'll talk a little bit about too. Just off the top, number one game of the year for you guys for RPG.
Go ahead, David.
Fire Emblem.
Well, we just talked about that.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Okay, like I said,
You said number two.
It was my number two. My number one was Shin Megami Tensei 4. I'm a big fan of that series as well. And I already kind of gave some of my qualms about the newest Fire Emblem, which while I still really like the game, just kind of bumped it off the number one spot. So Shin Megami Tensei 4, it didn't win any awards on RPG site, sadly, but it had a very high ceiling of expectation following Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne, and it honestly probably never had a chance to reach those expectations because Nocturne is such an amazing game in itself. So it had a high bar to cross, and it didn't cross it, but I think it did some things really well. I love the demon building. It's kind of like a Pokemon system with the collecting aspect of it and training monsters, only with a lot more twists and turns to it. How you can fuse a team, keep it balanced, upgrade your demons as you play. You have to make sure you keep your elements covered and your buffs and your debuffs and your healing, and kind of keeping track of all those things as you go through it is just something that I enjoy doing. It's got a really kind of fast-paced, turn-based battle system. It added a couple of things like the smirking system, which is basically critical hits. That kind of broke some things in terms of difficulty, made things a little easy if you needed it to be. And it made a couple of other changes to make the game more friendly, such as like saving anywhere. You can pick your abilities after you fuse. In Nocturne, when you fuse the demon, you really didn't have much control over what abilities it retained. So that makes things easier. If your main character is allowed to die, in other SMT games it can't. So it did add a lot of these things to make the games more friendly, like I said, which I don't think is a negative thing. But anyways, just kind of that collecting and managing aspect of the demons is something that I really enjoyed a lot. It wasn't as strong narratively as some of the other games, but to be honest, I don't value that part of the game too much anyways. But so that was my number one RPG, even though it didn't surpass all expectations.
Yeah, well, it's personal number one, you know. It's, and I really want to play Shin Megami Tensei 4. So that's definitely on my list to play. For me personally, it's that definitely Ni no Kuni. I already mentioned how much I fell in love with that game and how still I can't believe how much fun I had with that game and how involved I got. It's like I don't give a crap about Pokemon, but I do really enjoy Ni no Kuni. And I was talking about how I was doing all these quests, stuff like that. It's about the closest I've gotten to a platinum. I've never gotten a platinum trophy before, but it's about the closest, and I do plan on going back and getting that. So a lot of that, although last month they did put out a patch for Valkyria Chronicles 3, which I've been spending a lot of time with, and it's pretty much been completely absorbed in my brain lately. Just completely getting involved in that. If you guys didn't know, they released an English patch for that game. So now, if you can buy the game and then install that patch and be able to play it. There's a lot of instructions how to do it. But like I bought my copy off the Japanese PSN, which was like $10. It was on sale for a while. I think it still is, if I'm not mistaken. I think you can still get it for around that much. But I downloaded it, installed it, and I've already expressed how in love I am with the series itself. But with Valkyria Chronicles 3, I completely fell in love with the characters. The main character is probably one of the best main characters in a long time I've seen. He's so well developed. He's such a strong figure in that game that, you know, it's like you can already tell how reliable he is in that trying to lead his squad through battle. And so seeing a character like that, it's really hard not to. And you know, like with any strategy RPG, you become attached to certain characters in that group that you want to focus on and build up and stuff like that. And that's pretty much kind of descriptive about how big I've been into strategy RPGs and dungeon crawlers. Like I've this past generation, at least late in generation, I've found a renowned love for those genres, and so it's like that's my complete focus now. And so I'm very happy that I've been able to get the chance to play those games, and I can only hope, of course, that Sega won't ignore the series and, you know, we'll release another one, and hopefully in the West as well. So,
yeah, Valkyria Chronicles is definitely, in terms of like a new face of RPGs, it's got a battle system that's unlike really anything else out there.
Yeah, and a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
It's really fun. It's kind of got like the, you know, the strategic elements you have to plan out what characters go where and what they're going to be doing. But of course, it has some of the real time, or pseudo real time elements as well, making sure you can do things, efficiently with how much your movement bar, whatever they call it. Yeah, so I played the first 2 games, and I really, really like both of them to varying extents. So the third one I might check out if I ever get onto it.
I got it on my PC, just waiting to do other stuff before starting it.
It's an amazing experience, and like you said, it's like with the Valkyria Chronicles, it's great, like using the environment to like hide behind certain objects and to take advantage of that, and all these different types of classes and things like that you can take to your advantage, and just how overpowered you can be in that game. But there's still a lot of ways to encourage challenge in that title, and so it's very exciting. I would love to see what new things they can do, and there's titles coming out soon that are inspired by that, like Natural Doctrines coming out later.
That's the only reason why I have any interest in that game is like, oh, it's supposed to be like Valkyria in some ways.
Yeah, you can move around. It's like real time. It's like the environment is destructible and stuff like that. It's like I want to. That's kind of like the logical next step in Valkyria Chronicles is destructible environments and stuff like that. It's like what can they do to take that thing to the next level? So it's, but obviously it's not going to replace Valkyria Chronicles 4. You want that, and so. Let's go ahead and quickly move into then 2014 RPGs. Now, by the time this comes up, I hope to have close to, if not completed, this giant list I've been working on of all the 2014 RPGs coming out. Currently, the list stands at 103.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of stuff coming out. So I kind of want to hear from you guys the games that you're most excited for. Don't feel like there's a limit, but like, for example, David, what RPGs are you looking forward to this year?
Let's see. I mean, I want to play Final Fantasy 10 and 10-2 HD because, I mean,
of course
always time.
You want to go back to like 10 years ago. You don't want to look forward to the future.
I want to go back 10 years ago.
Content we've never seen.
Yeah, well, let's look at
what else?
It's like all these games, and you look at towards the remaster. But yes, keep going.
Child of Light, I'm curious about.
That one's really interesting. It's
Ubisoft. He cares. Like you read his interviews, he cares about what he's doing.
It's got their I forget what they call their engine, like their creative engine, anyways. But it's got that side scroller aspect to it. The battle system actually reminds me a lot of Grandia, like this timing aspect of if you have, kind of like an ATB bar like Final Fantasy, only you have to time your attacks, and if you time them well, you can interrupt attacks and things like that. So it's kind of just a small twist on a turn-based system that's really interesting. So that's a very interesting game, I think, and it's coming out on like everything. Like all the consoles, Wii U and PC and everything.
It looks, as you said, it's using the same engine that like Rayman Origins used. I think it's called like UbiArt or something like that. It's like that engine looks amazing, and I can't wait to see what it's going to look like on the on the big screen as well. I mean, obviously small screen. I'm sure it's a game to take with you, of course.
I'm trying to think what else. South Park: Stick of Truth. I'm excited for it.
Yes. Although I've heard a rumor that it might be delayed again.
Are you serious?
I'm looking at Twitter right now. I see some people talking about it.
Obsidian,
It's
dated for February, right? And I don't know. It's like that's pretty soon.
I think it's March. It's March. I think it's March 11th or March 10th. Same like all the other games.
Whatever.
Lots of games coming out in the next couple of months.
Bravely Default, I'm really excited for.
Yes, I recently completed Final Fantasy V for the first time, and I really, really enjoyed it. As in, it's probably if it's not my number one Final Fantasy title, it's my number two. I enjoyed it a lot, and playing the Bravely Default demo, it's definitely kind of feels very similar to that with the job system. Only it's expanded even more now with how you can mix and match things, and it looks really. It has a great soundtrack. I think it looks pretty. It's got that nice style. It's not the greatest graphics on the 3DS, but
it's Matrix software graphics. Is that it?
It's got that. It's definitely. I'm definitely looking forward to that, and that comes out in about a week in the U.S. Europeans have had it for a while yet.
Yeah, they've been enjoying it for quite some time, but though it helps a little bit. You know what you're getting into.
I guess.
Yeah.
trying to think. What else is coming out this year? I can't remember.
There's quite a few Vita games coming out.
Yeah,
they just announced
Mind Zero. I'm
just announced Mind Zero, which is kind of like a Persona, almost Persona copycat. There's Tokiden. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. That
is that an action game?
That's kind of an action game. I don't know if that's when you get into that. Is that an RPG or not? But
it's totally an RPG. It's like you can customize your character, and there's like a lot of stuff you can acquire.
And that comes out.
And it's very.
That comes out roughly around the same time Bravely Default does. Early February.
Really cool that I don't know if it's coming out or not. Over My Dead Body.
I've heard a lot about that.
I don't know. Is that coming out in America or not?
I don't think it's announced.
I don't think they. Oh. Yeah, but it's popular.
There's that Conception 2 game, which is really kind of odd. It's coming out on Vita and 3DS, but it's
surprising that it was announced for this.
I heard the first one was really good, but not the second one.
It's got a very let's just say interesting premise. Like you meet characters, these female characters, and you get to know them, and you make star children, and they fight for you, and you can somehow like customize them in some ways.
You're basically creating your party from your offspring, so it's kind of
hence the name.
It's a good premise.
Exactly.
Yeah, but there's a couple of these kind of niche Vita titles coming out.
Demon Gaze is coming out, and I'm really excited for Demon Gaze because it got received well for what it was. I mean, that game, apparently their target was like 10,000 units, and it sold 100,000 units in Japan. It sold extremely well. But it's also because it's a dungeon crawler, and aside from that, I think it might be one of the few. As far as from Japan, I mean, obviously you got Legend of Grimrock 2 coming out too, but Demon Gaze, I'm really interested about that because it's got so many different characters in that game. Like it's all about the variety, and so I'm excited for that.
I think that's it for me.
There's a couple of big screen RPGs coming out as well, both Western and Japanese. I'm really interested in The Witcher 3, which it's kind of become one of the big Western RPG series. So first of all, it looks spectacular from what we've seen so far, and it's got.
Can't wait.
I'm definitely looking forward to it. It looks great. Definitely feels different from all the Japanese RPGs we've been talking about.
And the focus is that the problem they have with Skyrim is that it was a big world, but it was kind of empty, or it was a lot of samey. But their focus is on making a very deep world where everything's going on at once, and you can do all these different things, and how the main story and the side story blend together so well that you can't even tell the two apart.
Right.
So
exactly.
I'm excited to see how developed that.
And kind of games on a similar note, there's the new Dragon Age, which I haven't played either of the first two Dragon Ages, so I don't have any context here. But I know the second game was considered to be a bit disappointing. So this is I know BioWare has kind of been, they realize this and they're trying to turn it around. So it seems like they're putting a lot of effort into it. So I have some interest in it. But there's that game coming out. There's Dark Souls 2, which is obviously Japanese, but it kind of shares a similar aesthetic in some ways. I'm
definitely going to buy. That's the first one I'm going to actually get into a Souls game is Dark Souls 2.
Yeah, sure. Dark Souls 2. I know there were some comments early on that they said they were going to try to make it more accessible, and then they kind of backed down off of that because got a little bit of a reaction they didn't want. But I'm sure that if you enjoyed...
Everyone I've heard who's played that game, who's really been seeing that game is talking about how it's hard. It's still very hard.
Well, yeah. It's the Souls games, from what I've played, you kind of have to go around each corner, kind of,
Of course.
You have to go around. You have to kind of be thinking and on your toes the whole time because you never know when there's going to be some sort of ambush or enemy that's going to just, wipe you out like in a second. In terms of big screen Japanese RPGs, I know relatively early on we have a couple of remasters in Final Fantasy. There's also Tales of Symphonia, but there's also
Xillia 2.
There's
I totally forgot about that. I'm excited.
There's Xillia 2, which will probably come out sometime in the summer.
You think it's going to be like August, like the
Probably.
first one. That's my guess.
With Symphonia and Dark Souls 2 coming out from that publisher early, that one's going to be later.
Oh, and Kingdom Hearts 2.5, of course, coming out later, and it's probably September. This is like October.
Yeah, and then there's Atelier, Etcha and Logi, which
Esca and Logi.
however you pronounce it.
Escology.
Yeah, that's its derived from, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's about all that, but yeah, definitely. Very excited for that game. We'll have a review for that. And Tokiden, by the way, we'll have reviews for those.
So there's kind of a lot coming out for everything, for everybody, and there's a lot of indie games as well. A lot.
Yeah, and it's amazing.
Cosmic Star Heroine from Z-Void Games is probably one I'm really interested in. There's Transistor from Supergiant Games, which is kind of an RPG, kind of not. That's the Bastion developers.
Yep, but it's and I got to play the demo of it at E3 last year, and that
looks amazing.
It was amazing how you walk into it, people expecting this is just Bastion 2. It's not, but no, they did a lot of crazy things with it, like how at one point you can stop the action, you can move like a cursor around and decide, okay, I want you to go over here, attack this person. I want you to stop in this corner while this turret is firing down here, and then after that, run over here, attack it as well from long range, and then destroy this enemy that's hiding behind this bunker over here. And then you just hit a button, and then it all plays out in front of you. So it looks really cool, and the art style is great, and it's got a lot of the same voice of the person as you did the narrator in Bastion is the sword and Transistor, so it's still got that crazy contextual narration that people liked. So, and then you got Hyper Light Drifter, which blew people away when that thing showed up on Kickstarter. That amazing looking fluid sprite based kind of game, pixelated. So that looks great. Chasm looks amazing. I've been looking a lot like that. Chaos Reborn looks great. And the guy who made XCOM is making Chaos Reborn, and it's based off of the ZX Spectrum game that came out a long time ago. So that'll be exciting to see. There's just a lot of variety, and MMOs, a lot of them coming out this year. I mean, I want to also mention Drakengard 3, which I'm very excited about. It's coming out this year. So, and Trails in the Sky, second chapter's coming out.
I'm really looking forward to Trails in the Sky. I want to replay the first one whenever it releases on Steam and get that one because it's a direct sequel, literally. The first game ends on a cliffhanger.
And it picks up right off. And oh man, I gotta go back. So there's that, and then you got MMOs like Kingdom Hearts Fire 2. Hopefully, it comes out this year, which I've been really excited to play. And Blast, and hopefully, Phantasy Star Online 2 finally comes out.
X.
Maybe X. Yes, maybe X. You hope to see come out this year.
Xenoblade, developers, Monolith Soft. Xenoblade did a lot of things right, a couple things wrong. But X, from what we've seen, which we haven't seen from it, we haven't seen anything from it in a while. So it's kind of just amusing. Like
last year.
When are we going to see something next, and when are we going to hear more about it? Because it's kind of been a while since it's been announced now.
Yeah, there was that short trailer at around E3 last year that they showed off, like some of the more gameplay, like the mechs and stuff like that. And it's like people kind of wondering if that's going to be just an open world single player game like Xenoblade, or is it going to be an online multiplayer game?
Yeah, some of the screenshots,
and you hope it's not.
I know showed like chat boxes like an MMO, but it might be more like Monster Hunter with that online sense where
it's asynchronous. It's gonna be like Need for Speed. It's got social media and stuff like that. But no, I hope it's. White Knight Chronicles had some of that too.
Yeah.
They had like chat box stuff like that, like scrolling, like it's showing you. And who knows what that's going to be? I hope we learn more. I really want to know more about the game.
Yeah, but kind of in typical Nintendo fashion, they kind of go on radio silence for a while, but we'll hear something.
They'll talk about it again when it's going to be out in a couple months.
Yeah, probably at E3.
Probably.
They don't. They did say they're going to come back to E3. I'm sure Nintendo's actually going to have a conference again this year, like a proper press conference, not a small press area.
I think in the latest listings, X was still listed as a 2014 title.
Yeah, but those listings don't mean anything.
I mean, it's not set in stone, but I think
they have Kirby on those
moment,
listings for years.
Yeah.
And that didn't come out till like 2010 or something.
Well, like Mass Attack.
I also hope, by the way, that speaking of which, that Freedom Wars comes out here too, because that's like Sony Japan's next big project. So I wanna play Freedom Wars for sure, and Deep Down, but that's who knows what that's going to be like. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so and obviously we got these new consoles. I want to see some damn RPGs on these new consoles.
That would be nice.
You know, it's very obviously you're not supposed to hear about that stuff for like another year or two. The ones you want to play like PlayStation 3, it took a few years, but it's like, guys, they said it's easy to develop for. I want to see like at least something showing up. I want to see the next Tales game. I want to see more than just Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts. I want to see a lot more than
Tales
that.
of Zesty is going on, so.
Zestiria, as it were. Zestiria. You got to have the IA at the end because that's how you know it's a proper Tales game.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And so, well, hopefully we hear a lot more. You got GDC, which they are planning some announcements for. They did say, Sony was saying something about how they have something that people are going to be excited for, which the rumor is that the PlayStation 4 is going to support PlayStation 1 and 2 games to be just, you can pop the disc in, and then it apparently has got a built-in emulator that upscales things like you expect, like the PlayStation 3 used to do, but also like the Vita TV. But then later on you got E3, Gamescom, TGS. You can go down the list of all the shows coming up. So yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
Yeah. So obviously a giant year. Like I said, we'll have this list up on the site this weekend, and so like I said, put a lot of work into it, but it'll have all the RPGs, and so I'm very much looking forward to what you guys out there are looking forward to as well. So definitely share it with us on Twitter or on our site. So in the meantime, we also kind of played off of it that the new version of the site has been up this year, so check it out. Put a lot of work into it, so it's great to see how amazing it looks now, especially with like some of the longer pieces we've done. And of course, we hired a new video editor, so check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/RPGSiteNet. Justin's been doing some amazing work on there, like just this past, this will go up on February 1st, but I should say like a couple of days before today is when you're hearing this, is he put up a review for Sweet Home, which is a survival horror RPG that inspired Resident Evil. Resident Evil is actually supposed to be a remake of Sweet Home, but it became something else. But there's still a lot of stuff in there. It's got like the mansions in there, the puzzles, the crazy like equipment and stuff like that you use. A lot of the looking at like an object and trying to manipulate it. All kinds of stuff is in that game. So check it out. He put a lot of work into it, so I want to make sure that you guys take a look at it as well. It's funny, it's fun, it's just nice it's a good watch. But yeah, so with that, we'll just go ahead and bring this to a close.
Oh wait, hold on a second. I got to say something.
Oh yes.
I just got to shameless plug myself for a second. I just published a book recently. It's called Freeze Kill. It's about a serial killer that can stop time. Go buy it. It's good, I've been told.
How do I buy it?
Go to Amazon.com, type in Freeze Kill, and then buy it.
No matter what comes up.
Yeah, no matter what comes up, just buy it.
So you probably put your name in there too, like Freeze Kill David?
Yeah, this is Freeze Kill, David Kreinberg, buy, read.
Is it physical or Kindle?
It's only Kindle for now. It's only an ebook.
Yeah. Everyone's buying Kindle now.
Yeah, I'll get a physical copy out eventually. Maybe. I don't know.
I know more people that have Kindle now. So, yeah, definitely check out his book. It's I actually had the page open yesterday, so I'll probably be buying myself a copy too because I want to check it out. Yeah, I definitely want to. I want to read what you put down, David. You're a smart guy.
Very nice of you.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't need a Kindle. You can just read it on your computer.
Yep, absolutely. They do let you do that.
All right, I'll shut up about that for now.
All right, great. So, obviously, February is going to be a big month. So, our next podcast, Lightning Returns. It'll be out. Tokiden will be out this month.
Yeah, there's a lot.
The Default will be out. What else? Tales of Symphonia is supposed to come out this month. Is that right?
Yeah, at the very end. Yeah.
At the very end. So probably if we do talk about it, maybe not a lot, but hopefully should have something on that. But yeah, and then obviously screen's just huge. So check out that. But in the meantime, I'd like to thank, of course, David and Adam for joining me. Thanks a lot, guys.
No problem, Zach.
All right, yeah. So, and with that, we'll end this TetraCast. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and catch us next time on the next edition.
Bye, everybody.